Hey everybody. So recently people have been asking me a lot of questions about Deadside now that there's a lot of new people joining. So I figured I'd just make a little guide for everybody. This is going to be a three-part series. The video you're watching now is a pretty much basics, you've never launched the game, and you want to get into it kind of video. This video is just going to cover opening the game and getting into it. When you first launch Deadside, you're going to see a bunch of servers. Now, unless you bought the game already intending to play on a certain server, it could be a little bit difficult to figure out which server is for you. Generally, there are about 5 different things that make each server different. First-person perspective, third-person perspective, high loot, PvE, and PvP and PvE. I personally think that third-person shooters get a little bit ridiculous, so I stick to the first-person servers. But if you want both, there's that too. Now, some can have their loot tables turned up so that it's a lot easier to find the high tier loot. Personally, it makes no difference to me since everybody's getting the same loot either way, but if you want to be using the fancy guns, join a high loot server. Some are only PvE, meaning that there's no player to player fights at all. This is purely just fighting the bots, doing the missions and heli crashes and all that stuff. I could also see, because you're new, joining one of those just to learn the game. But personally, I would say join a PvP server, because it's what the majority of the player base plays, and I think it's the most fun. I might be asking, hey, what servers do I play on? Well, I just play on Cotton server exclusively, because I love the community there. And if you want to join, you're welcome to. Come say hi. Either way, you're going to need to choose a server to play on. Once you find one, go ahead and log in. When you log into the server, you're going to be met with this menu. All you got to do is choose your character. It really doesn't matter which one you choose. Most of the time it's going to be covered by clothes and helmets and stuff. And then, you spawn in for the first time. So unless the server you joined has a starter kit, you're going to spawn naked with just a knife in the middle of nowhere, usually outside of a town. So you're going to want to go in town and just scavenge for loot. The objective here is to find a weapon, so you can defend yourself against AI and other players. You're also going to need clothes to store some items. Once you get all that taken care of, try to find either moonshine, vodka, or rubbing alcohol. Combine these with rags that you've torn up from clothes and you can create sterilized rags, which heal for 15 health. So at this point, assuming you're still alive, you've found some crappy weapon in a house, and some clothes and some healing. If you're lucky, you found some rope and you can also make yourself a backpack. So what now? Well, you might be wondering what there even is to do. And the first thing you should be concentrating on is getting a decent amount of money at one of the traders. And I think the easiest way to do this is to try to complete either an easy or a medium mission. Now with the gear you have, that's going to be kind of difficult, but it's going to net you about 15 to 20k. And you're going to need that later on to buy bandages and food, and really so you can progress towards the next tier of play. So go ahead and try to find a mission near you, or just run across the map to one, and start shooting at these bots. Now the objective of these missions is to kill every single bot in the mission area, which is pretty difficult on its own considering that other players are probably going to be trying to do the exact same thing. And at the very end, a little box will appear with blue around it. This is the box with the mission rewards. Usually it spawns money, guns, armor, and medications. Alternatively, if there's no easy or medium missions up or available on the map, you could also head over to the little dots that you see on the map. Now those tend to have a little bit more loot than your average town. Usually they will have military scabs there, as well as some static military spawns. Keep in mind though, there is going to be increased player traffic there compared to your normal town, and the players that are there are going to have at least military gear, usually. A good place to go is the sawmill in the northwest. Also, northeast military is always full of gear, and bots, and players, but very profitable if you could make it out. But once you've gotten yourself a decent amount of loot, I'd go ahead to one of the trader zones. Go ahead and store the stuff that you might want to use later and sell anything you don't really like. However, at this point I would keep any weapon, armor, or equipment that you found on your journey, but go ahead and sell stuff like drills, circular saws, and car batteries. They're not really used for anything else. Also any moonshine, vodka, or rubbing alcohol, since you can just buy bandages, which are much better. They're 1k a pop, but they heal 35 slowly over time, which is much better than those sterilized rags, which only do 15 and honestly run out pretty quick. And go ahead and sell all that random assorted stuff you picked up, like spark plugs, cigarettes, watches. They have no purpose and they're only meant to be sold. Also, if you manage to find any dog tags, go ahead and sell those. They don't sell for money, but they sell for rep points, which you can use to select your spawn point on the map after you die. Now you can't spawn closer than 1 kilometer away from your body, but it's still very useful if you want to put yourself in a certain position after you die. Now you might be wondering what the best weapon is for the early game of Deadside, and personally I would say any shotgun is really good. It will almost always instantly kill any scav or AI you run across, as well as most players unless they're wearing armor. In that case, just shoot them again and they'll keel over. The only thing that limits you is range. You cannot engage with any snipers or really anybody outside of 50 meters, so keep that in mind. But as long as you play it correctly, you can use your shotgun to really get a lot done. Now since it is relatively early game, you don't really have to worry about which trader you want to set up at. But eventually you are going to want to just live at mainly one, because storage between each is not shared. You have different storage crates at each trader. There's advantages and disadvantages to both the north and south trader, and it really just depends on your playstyle. If you prefer the close-in battles, you're probably going to want to live at the south. Most engagements down there happen within 50 meters, and shotguns are pretty common. Generally, players down there have less loot, but there are much more players in the south compared to the north, at least in general. Up in the north, it's pretty often you will get an engagement over 100 meters with either a Mosin or some other sort of sniper. Players up there generally will have more gear, however there are less of them. Again, usually, your experience may vary depending on the server you're playing on. Now as far as loot goes, there is more loot up north, however, you do have to run farther for it, and you will have to compete with people for it as well. Down in the south, there's decent loot, it's close to the trader, it's easy to farm, and most of the players down there won't be running that crazy gear. So really it's up to you. So just try each one and see what you like. Now I do need to mention, you are gonna die a lot. A lot. And that's just how it is with these sort of survival games, and you should honestly be expecting it. Every time you die it's a learning experience, and you should think of it that way. As long as you don't really attach yourself to the gear that you're running, it shouldn't be an issue when you die. Plus, usually you can just run back to your body and get it back, especially if you're kind of running trash. Nobody will pick it up. Either way though, expect to get rolled on by some pretty geared players and groups. I think the biggest tip I can give, especially to a solo player who's just starting out on a new server, is to play smart. Know when to disengage. If you're running across a giant group of geared guys, it's better you just leave the area and let them have whatever loot is there. Take what you can get, and don't get in over your head. Don't try to solo an epic mission, you're gonna die. Same with hard missions. You can try helicopter crashes, but chances are you'll get killed by other players or the bots. Cargo crates are good, but again, there's gonna be lots of players there. Another useful tip for trying to establish yourself in a server, try to play when other players aren't really online. So early-ish in the morning when people are working, generally the server won't be at its peak population, and it's a lot easier to get gear. But really that's it when it comes to beginner stuff. I'll be doing another video soon about intermediate, kind of midline gear, starting to get into the heli crashes, harder missions. But for now, if you're just starting, this is the stuff you need to be concentrating on. Just kind of get used to the game, know which guns are good, learn the map a little bit, learn the feel of the controls, all that stuff. If you got any questions about something I didn't cover in this video, just leave it in the comments, I will respond. If you want to see more, do all that subscribing YouTube stuff. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.